Live. You would think I'd be used to that at this point, but there's always that little slight hesitation when you see that live thing come up. It's like, what am I doing? Who am I getting? Anyway, I know I'm Brent Leary, and it is a few good minutes. I love doing a few good minutes because that means I get to talk to people that are really smart and are doing really interesting things. And sometimes they don't even like the Patriots as their NFL football team, which really makes it great. But I'm going to make an exception. I see my guest laughing in the virtual back the green room there. Well, I'll make an exception because this Cyber Week just finished. Black Thursday, Thanksgiving, Cyber Monday. I mean, all of that crazy shopping stuff has just finished. The numbers are in, and I am really glad because I like numbers, and I like talking about numbers, and I like digging into the numbers, and I really like when I have somebody to do that with. So before I bring on my guest, which is Rob Garf from Salesforce, I wanted to do a quick shout out because coming up next week, December 7th, I know it's a date that would live in infamy, but not for this. We're going to be doing our annual CRM Players What is CRM event with conversations with senior level executives from major vendors that make up a pretty sizable chunk of the CRM market. So we're going to have representation from Salesforce, Oracle, ServiceNow, Microsoft, Adobe coming together for unscripted conversation, very informal, just bringing some folks together to talk about what they see the year ahead for CRM. So that's going on the usual CRM Players time, 3 p.m. Eastern on Thursdays. So it'll be next Thursday, and it should be fun because not only do we like hearing from the executives and hearing kind of their perspectives and their take and where they think things are going, but we also like when folks are right there in the comments section letting us know what they think, because that's just as important. So mark your calendars, next Thursday, 3 p.m. Eastern, for what is CRM in 2024. I can't wait. I don't know what it is. We need these folks to tell us what it's going to be. All right. So next up, my guest. Now, I'm gonna do a little bit of an introduction. This man is known for not just taking selfies. He's taking it all to level. Look at this. So I picked this up off of his LinkedIn page. Now, Rob is really well known for taking selfies. So I wasn't really, oh, it's Rob selfies. It's like looking at the sun. Oh, it's a nice day. But this one caught my attention mainly because he's chilling with my boy DMC. I mean, I grew up listening to Run DMC. My first favorite song may be Sucker MCs. It just might be, or it might be It's Like That, or it might be something that came from Daryl McDaniels there. So I was like, Rob is chilling with my man DMC. That's so cool. And then I read the little caption that goes along with the cool image because I thought it's just Rob taking another selfie. I was completely wrong. Um, this is what is called a Garfie at this point. Rob has taken so many selfies, and if you go to his LinkedIn page, you will see lots of selfies. I was just saying, I don't think I've ever seen like Rob in a picture that wasn't like this. But it's gotten to the point where he's got Garfies now, and apparently there's even Garfie merch I just learned about. So with that, I would like to bring in the GM and I believe SVP of retail for Salesforce, Rob Garf. Rob, thanks for joining me, man.
What an introduction, Brent. I love it. I appreciate it. You give me the love even as a Patriots fan. So I really appreciate that.
See, I had to go bring that up again. I was starting to get over that, and it is. But when you're chilling with Daryl Mack, I mean, I got to give it up, man.
He's a friend, and really excited at NRF coming up in January. The day before on Saturday, there's an annual charity event called Super Saturday put on by the Retail Orphan Initiative. And D was an orphan. So he talks about his journey from there till what we know of him now. And by the way, I grew up with, you know, his songs as well. So it's always really fun to see him. And he's an amazing storyteller, not just via rap, but just in terms of his journey. So that was a fun one from a couple of years ago. Hope to get another one in January as well.
Cool. Well, I literally saw a documentary where he was talking about his journey.
Yeah.
To find his family. And just yesterday, I saw a video on YouTube of him rapping, and he lost his voice for a long time. He's got his voice back, and he looks really good. I mean, it was just great to see
really
him doing
good.
his thing. So shout out to you and getting the Garfy of you. And,
that's one of my most popular ones. That was definitely a highlight in the Garfy lineage for sure.
Well, I know what a highlight this time of year is for you now. And I was kind of chilling over the Thanksgiving weekend, sitting back, eating a lot of food, watching a lot of football. I started getting these emails, and they were coming from Salesforce, and they were giving me these updates of what's going on with what's online sales for Thanksgiving. And then it was Black Friday.
Yeah.
I was still getting stuff over the weekend. I was like, do these people ever work? I mean, you ever take a break or anything? And then I was getting them for yesterday. And I was like, man, I really got to talk to Rob so he can kind of walk me through some of these numbers that are coming in and help make sense of them. And then I got pointed to, well, I just love this website you guys put together. It's great to get the numbers, but you guys put together this web dashboard, what's going on with holiday shopping. And it just brought out not only a whole bunch of numbers, but allowed me to play with the numbers and go inside the numbers. So I would love to talk about some of the numbers that you guys are seeing based on, well, you have a methodology, but you also just have a whole treasure trove of data at your disposal. So before we start talking about some of the big numbers, can you just talk about how those numbers come about? What's the methodology you're using to showcase all the data that you're collecting around this holiday season?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad you were geeking out and checking out our dashboard built on Tableau on Salesforce.com. It was funny. I'm in an internal meeting today, and we were talking about the highlights of CybrWeek, and I mentioned half jokingly, I felt like our platform, it was 100% uptime. We were going throughout the whole week, and it was a lot of fun. We have people all over the world, so we were working in the advantage of the sun and getting at the information 24 hours each day. And so, yeah, it's been a fun week. It's been a big week. And as you mentioned, as Salesforce, we aggregate signals from billions of shoppers that traverse our platform. If you think about across marketing, when consumers are discovering product, and commerce when they're buying product, and service when they have questions about the merchandise. And at this point, with the billions and billions of data points, we aggregate that. We don't have any access to personally identifiable information, but it really becomes the de facto standard of what's happening in digital. The dashboard you referenced on Salesforce.com, our Shopping Insights HQ, allows our retail executives or anybody to slice and dice by geography, by vertical. And it is a really fun time of year because my inbox, my texts are just being inundated with people wanting to know the ups and downs, not just how they're doing, because they know how they're doing, but it's more of how they're benchmarking against their peer set, whether that's by vertical or in a specific geography. So it's a lot of fun to see the team's influence during the holiday season to really shape what's happening and really, pull the levers of how to be successful during the holiday season.
And it says, I'm looking at the site, 1.5 billion global shoppers. So you're getting data from, that's like what, 20% of the world or something like that, or something crazy like that.
Yeah,
That's
not
amazing.
everyone's shopping. So it's of the percentage of people actually shopping, it's a big percentage. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
So I'm going to pop up. And one of the things I love about this site, the dashboards, you can actually download a slide, which was just beautiful, because usually I'm doing a lot of cutting and pasting and stuff. You guys just made it easy for me to do this. So I thought I'd just bring up a couple of slides and maybe you could talk us through some of these things. But
Yeah.
so this is like the overall, because there's US, then there's global, and
Yep.
this is global. So
this is global. Yeah.
Global sales on Thanksgiving. This is kind of unbelievable. $31.7 billion sold on, and this is online, right?
Online. That's right.
Online around the world. I remember like Thanksgiving not that long ago where nobody was buying anything. I mean, we were just sitting back, eating a lot of stuff and watching football, which I still do on every Thanksgiving. But apparently, in addition to that, there's a lot of people, and I think it's picking up their mobile devices to buy stuff.
That's exactly right, Brent. And I was going to bring that up, the mobile phenomena. I mean, we're all using our phones as the remote control to how we're shopping during the holiday. But you think about it, we see a really spike in traffic right after in local time. Basically, Thanksgiving meal is finishing up. So, think about between 4 and 9 o'clock at night, local time. People need a little break. They're sitting on the couch. They're doing a bit of surfing. By the way, not only is mobile traffic really the portal into the shopping experience with, on Thanksgiving, over 80% of traffic. Social also plays a significant role. You think about what are you doing on your phone when you're sitting on the couch, taking a break from your family? You're likely scrolling through Instagram or Facebook or checking out TikTok. And we saw on Thanksgiving, right around 12% of all mobile traffic to sites are coming from social. So that played a really important, top of the funnel attraction vehicle for retailers.
And I noticed the one thing I've been looking at, and because there's been so much talk about and so much anticipation about this holiday season, and what role inflation was going to play in it. Was it going to make people not want to shop, or was it going to make it look like the numbers are really a lot better? But when you take inflation into consideration, maybe they're not. So globally, I noticed that Thanksgiving was up 1% year over year. But when I looked at the US, it was also, and I've seen like some kind of discrepancies around it. But are you seeing interest rates, inflation being the reason why we're seeing increases, or are we just seeing increases beyond just the inflation effect?
Yeah, it's a really good distinction that needs to be made. Let me zoom out for 1 second to look at this data in the US. You can see 1% Thanksgiving, but more importantly, 9% growth during Black Friday. And you see the Cyber Monday number of 3% growth. Looking at the first couple quarters, Brent, of this year, we were essentially at flat growth. And most, if not all of the, let's call it growth, was coming from increased prices, not increased demand, meaning people weren't buying more. So that's getting to your point. It was really, for the last 5 quarters, largely driven by average selling price increases. So that's our indicator for inflation. So far this holiday, well, let's zoom in on CybrWeek as an example. The growth for the first time in 5 quarters came from increased demand. So we saw more traffic and we saw more order volume as well. So that's a really nice indicator. We've been looking at Europe, take UK out of it. We've been looking at continental Europe as a leading indicator of the rebound. And we think that US, Canada, UK, well, UK is probably the farthest behind, but those 3 are about 2 quarters, maybe 3 quarters behind the rebound that Europe is seeing. What I mean by that is inflation settling down and more demand happening. So I'll say that any retailer I was talking to, Brent, over the last 6 months, they were not overly bullish about growth this holiday. They were not setting high expectations, and even some of the early earnings calls are playing this out, right, from the retailers. But what was a bit of a surprise was the nice burst we saw at Black Friday, 9% in the US, 8% globally, and then the nice burst on CybrWeek, 3% in the US, 5% globally. And again, what is really positive for retailers. Not only that growth, but the fact that they're preserving margins. They're looking pretty good around inventory levels. That's been an issue the last couple of years since what happened in the Port of LA in 2021, where we saw just a glut in the supply chain. So the bullwhip effect was still working its way out, believe it or not. But retailers are feeling good about a little higher growth than they expected, plus inventory levels looking pretty good, and margins as well. They just on discount, and I'll stop talking because I know I've thrown a lot out at the audience. Discount levels, as they rose, so did sales.
Yeah, I was going to mention, it seems like maybe part of the combination, or the part of the reason why sales are actually maybe a bit of a positive surprise for retailers, taking in the whole inflation, but they're actually selling more beyond the inflation stuff. Part of it is, I think, I saw some really good, for me personally, I saw some really great discounts on stuff I hardly ever see discounted, like Apple stuff. I mean, as soon as the Best Buy, maybe this kind of ties everything. So I got, on Thanksgiving Day, I got a notification from Best Buy. So got the messages in there. Got this offer, shop now, 30% off Apple products, AirPod Pro, new generation. I was like, all right, you had me at 30% off Apple products. So I immediately, as I'm watching, the football game, probably the Cowboys at that time, and then eating something, because I know I was doing a lot of eating while watching the football game while I was getting this notification on my mobile device. I was like, dang, I was been looking for getting these anyway, 30% off. So I immediately, clicked it, bought it online, and the next day picked it up in the store, because it's only like a 6-mile drive. So I went to the store, got into I was looking for the pickup line, because I had not been in a Black Friday store. I haven't been in a store for Black Friday in like a decade, because I was going to say, I don't want to go to a store.
You braved the masses, but you did buy it at home to pick it up in the store.
I bought it at home. I said, okay, the discount is so good, I'll take the chance of picking it up in the store. But when I got to the store, it was no problem at all. I mean, I don't know if that's a good thing or bad thing for Best Buy, but I didn't have to, fight a whole bunch of people.
Yeah.
But the cool thing is, the other part of that experience was I had a trade-in. So usually when you have an Apple trade-in, you have to ship it to them, and then it's like takes weeks before they, okay it and then release your money. So I went to Best Buy with my old AirPod Pros, turned it in. The next day, I got a credit on my account because they took care of all that stuff, the in-between stuff. So it was great. So there's the discount, there is the flexibility of buying it and picking it up later. I think that's that's one part. But then the next part, it feels like, and I've seen this in some other data, it's also the buy now, pay later. Like Cyber Monday, I heard, was the biggest day for buy now, pay later. So you got the combination of a deep discount, and also you don't even have to pay everything, right up front anymore.
Yeah, let me ask you something. Did you end up buying anything more when you went into the Best Buy to pick up the iPods? AirPods, excuse me.
Not yet.
No,
I was looking, and I might end up, but they got me in the store. Like,
well, that's the point. They got you in the store, and our prediction shows that an extra $28 billion will be spent from people picking up product that they bought online and then going in the store. It's a great traffic driver, but I also like hearing that they smoothed out the exchange process, because exchange returns have been a thorn in people's sides, and retailers have not done a great job. They've been very, I would say, generous with the return policies, and they're reeling them in. 88%, according to our research, of retailers are changing the returns policies. And in many cases, it's at the expense of an actual really nice, easy, clean, clear, and transparent return process. But going back, you just, to unwrap a couple of those things, I think you captured a lot of really goodness in what you just went through as your own kind of data point of one, if you will. First of all, discount rates over CybrWeek were the highest they've been. Actually, they eclipsed even 2019 just barely. So they hovered around 30% on average. And it's important. It's on average, right? So like you're going to see discounts up towards 40, 50%, certainly in certain categories, and lower discount rates in other categories. But on average, 30 or right around 30%. And by the way, you talked about inflation, you talked about interest rates. You can't ignore how people are feeling from an economic perspective, right, Brent? In terms of people have gotten very diligent and patient around their buying this year. They saw that discounts really weren't attractive early in the holiday season, like the first couple of weeks of November. And they waited. To put in perspective, we look at Amazon big deal days in October. It's become, in the industry anyways, a bit of a symbolic start to the holiday, although it really doesn't start then. They want it to. Discount rates were 40% lower during those 2 days than they were over CybrWeek. So if people bought, they weren't really getting that good of a deal. So anyways, those that didn't buy, which was the majority, held off, and they ultimately clicked the buy button when they were feeling they were getting value. And it's good they did, because inventory levels, like I said, retailers got conservative around their open to buy. So there's not a ton of excess inventory. When you go on the stores, you'll see it's, the shelves, the racks, the end caps are fairly light. Retailers didn't want to sit with all the inventory they have been over the last couple of years. But I'm glad you took care of and took advantage of buying online, picking up at store. Yeah. That's a big deal. We saw that over the weekend specifically. So just if you zone in on Black Friday through Cyber Monday, what we saw is 1 in 4 orders were bought online and picked up in store. So that's a pretty sizable amount. Those are for, by the way, retailers that offered that capability. So it's less if you take the whole world of retail.
Right. No, I think all these pieces go into the puzzle of, why these numbers are adding up the way they are. I think, the deeper discounts and the more flexible payment options, they got to help. I mean, they got to help.
They do. I didn't get into the buy now, pay later, but you're right. We saw with our data that increased 7% year over year. That was after a really large increase, so a higher baseline from last holiday. People are buying smaller ticket items. So it's not just the couch, it's not just the TV, it's the pair of jeans, or, more and more are using it actually at fast food and fast casual restaurants as well. So the types of categories are also expanding. What we also saw on the payment side, Brent, if I can for 1 second, mobile wallets really surged. So more and more people are downloading and using, and it really had an impact of breaking down the friction between inspiration and purchase. So we saw just over a 50% increase in mobile wallet usage. Look at you. Oh my gosh. Boom.
I tried.
Mic drop. So you see it here. Is this global, or is this just looking at?
I think it's global.
Yeah, it's looking like it is. Yeah. There you go. Gift cards were high. Obviously, you'll see a lot of redemption happening after the Christmas time, and January. January is huge for gift card redemption and returns and exchanges as well. That's why retailers historically have made their fiscal year at the end of January, so they can really reconcile the whole holiday, not just the sales, and see how they net it out.
The other thing, I'm going to jump back because I had a couple other slides.
Yeah.
I wanted to go to this one. So the whole marketing messages thing was really interesting. And what kind of format and what kind of channel was being used. So overall it says, and I think this is the global number, 13% more messages were sent this year versus last year. But when you look at it, 9% more email messages, but by far the thing driving it was more the I guess the SMS kind of messages and things like that, which is really interesting. So it's basically a 4-to-1 growth. We're seeing more and more of those messages versus email. But from an effectiveness standpoint, is email still kind of the more effective messaging channel for this, or not only has the other messages caught up in terms of volume, but
Yeah.
of effectiveness too.
Yeah, it's a good point. Let me get to effectiveness in a second and just talk about the reality. There's been a lot of talk about the pulling forward of the holiday. I mean, people see that because you go into, a big box store in September and you're seeing definitely Halloween candy. And in some cases, you're seeing Christmas trees. And we did see an increase in messaging early part of the holiday, late October, early November, but the deals weren't there. And so we saw increase, as you can see, our volume. Email, it was a healthy 9% year-over-year increase, as you see. But the push SMS to the phone has really increased. I was with a group of retailers over the summer in New York discussing this, and they're really leaning into their mobile engagement strategies because if you can, as a retailer, get real estate in their inbox on their phone via push SMS, OTT, or through, apps like a loyalty program app, you're doing really well. And that's where you're seeing the most engagement. But actually, to kind of go off this screen for a second, social from a traffic perspective was really healthy. And we predicted coming into this holiday season that it's going to outperform by 10 times higher other channels. Because again, that's just where people are going to discover. I was guest lecturing at Brandeis University last week on Tuesday before Thanksgiving. And just as by a show of hands, there are 20 students, but this is the demographic.
Okay.
Ask them, how many people have bought something either directly in social or from a social link that they saw something. And I would say more than half raised their hands. And it was different ways they were doing it, but that's how people are discovering. And so I should say email's not dead. I mean, don't get me wrong. Email is still really strong. But you see the mobile centric type of engagement. That is the future, along with social as well from an engagement perspective.
Yeah, one of the things I think I dug in just a little bit. Let me see if I can bring this back up.
Okay.
I was looking specifically, so this is the overall, but then I just looked specifically at e-tailers and look at the growth numbers and for that segment compared to the overall. It sounds like they've gone full board. Not only is email increased significantly, but the SMS is just jumping off the charts here.
It really has. If you think about digitally native brands, I mean, that's where consumers find them. They're not going into a physical store, right? So they're finding creative ways to engage. It's early sales, early access, updates on order status. So there's a lot of function to it. And that's what we find. If there's a killer app that will benefit the consumer, meaning make it more convenient, make it easier, remove the friction, hey, I'll provide information about myself. I'll let you into my, text chain. Bring it on.
It's so fascinating. I think there's some generational things too, because as you keep pointing out, kind of the younger generations, they're bought all in on this. I think the older generations, I got the gray beard for some reason here. They're not necessarily gravitating towards that just yet. They're kind of still stuck in the more traditional, like email me and that kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean the data bears that out by demographic, by age group, for sure. Absolutely. And it's also geographic. You look at Asia, you look at China specifically, and people are just already there in terms of the app as the interface into the retailer. Branded sites aren't as big as the WeChat site app to be able to not only buy things, but receive service, ping back and forth with an agent. Clienteling, I just spent a couple of weeks in Europe and I was in Milan as part of that. So as you can imagine, some of the biggest luxury brands in the world, and they're really doubling down on engaging with consumers through WhatsApp, WeChat, those types of vehicles, especially for clienteling, because that's where they want that one-to-one, interaction or through those apps. So it's a really indicator. Again, these convergence, Brent, and you're an analyst, so like it doesn't take a lot of dots to connect. When you see mobile surging, social surging, these push and SMS, like it's going in that direction. People are on the go. Again, they're using, as I mentioned before, the phone as the remote control into the shopping experience, not only in the holiday, but it's going to just continue to go that way.
All right. So we talked about a lot. We went through a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
But there's one thing we didn't talk about.
Uh-oh.
AI, Gen AI.
Oh, yeah.
Is there any material impact on all these numbers from Gen AI? Because the whole year, that's what everybody, I don't think I've ever had a conversation this year that didn't get to that. So when it comes to all this data, all this shopping, all these different kind of things going on, is there any material impact from Gen AI on what you've seen so far this shopping period?
Yeah. I guess we should talk about AI, right? And you're right, by the way. And it's not just here in the US. It was part of every conversation I was having in the 4 different countries I visited over the couple of weeks around Europe. And retailers are still trying to embrace what this means. And there's a lot of discussion around. We're still in the early stages. Predictive AI has been around for quite some time. So product recommendations, of course, being fueled by predictive. But there's an element of targeted emails. There's service as well that will have an impact. What we predicted coming into the year, or to the holiday season anyways, was $194 billion of online sales being influenced by AI. That's a combination of generative and predictive. What we saw over CybrWeek, and I should have mentioned this beginning, you probably saw it for those that were looking at the details in the dashboards, that we defined CybrWeek as the Tuesday before Thanksgiving to and through Cyber Monday. For that time period, we saw $51 billion of online sales influenced by artificial intelligence. One of my favorite use cases is what Gucci is doing in what they call Gucci 9, which is their service center. They're leveraging Salesforce, Service Einstein, and what they're doing is they're helping the service advisors in 3 areas. One is they're creating scale. Second is they're creating consistency in the service. And third is they're connecting those consumers to the brand and the specific products they love. And that they're doing that by using Einstein to serve up responses that then 100% of the time the advisor is then massaging and changing and editing to make it right and really make it spot on. And they're seeing all of those 3 things happen in terms of scale, consistency, and online sales. And what that means is, sales is kind of sort of big now, but it's really going to kick in right after Christmas when people need to think about how to return the product, how to exchange the product, how to use their gift card. So they're just getting ready. They're just ramping up, and it's going to be really big. I'm excited. I'm going to go check out their Gucci 9 location in New York in the next couple of weeks.
Do you know if they make any Rams gear, Gucci Rams gear? Because I'll be all in on
that. I know there's a good, there's a good collaboration. I think that's bound to happen.
Rob, so in our last minute or two here, for the rest of the holiday shopping season, what do you see? What is Salesforce seeing from the data that you've already kind of been digging into?
Yeah, we've been asked this by customers in terms of with the what I'll call surprising uplift that we saw, particularly in Black Friday and Cyber Monday. Does that mean we are going to reforecast and go higher with it? And we're not. What we're seeing is it's really just taking market share from the bookends of holiday, the early stages that were pulled forward a little bit in the late stages. And so we're still sticking with our 1% growth in the US online and 4% growth globally online. But the next critical point, Brent, will be right around the shipping cutoff date. And so that's, let's say around 10 days before Christmas. And that's put in place so retailers aren't committing to getting the product to the consumer with ground shipping. And in order to have a guarantee, you have to pay expedited shipping, and that's a lot of money. Of course, retailers leaning into creative last mile, whether it's the experience you had with Best Buy or it's, working with a third party like let's say Walmart, Go Local, who we have a relationship with and an integration into Commerce Cloud and OMS. And if people, or I should say brands, don't have that, essentially kind of the online store shuts down, right? Because people aren't going to feel comfortable buying something that they're not absolutely sure they're going to get for gifting. And so we're going to see a lot of promotions around that. We're going to see people, or again, retailers and brands that have that capability saying it's not too late, right? And we are predicting, based on what we've seen in past years, those retailers that have buy online, pick up in store capabilities, so by virtue of that, they have stores, will grow at a 7 times higher rate than those that don't. So that plays a huge deal. And then we have to think about after Christmas. Returns are going to be huge again. And we're encouraged by some of the changes and investments retailers are making here to make it easy, clear, and transparent. But the way one retail executive put it to me is returns are either last time somebody's going to shop with them because it's such a bad experience, or it's the next stage in the next time they shop with them, and they want to make it the latter.
That makes total sense, because if you get that return process right, for whatever reason somebody has to use it,
yeah,
if it's a pretty pleasant and painless experience, that gives them the confidence to shop more, because they know if something does happen, well, at least this process is pretty straightforward and painless, and it does what it needs to do. But if it's terrible, I'm done. I don't want to go through that again. So that totally makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, actually, I mean, we looked at the top 1,000 websites globally. We crawled through their websites, and what we found based on the criteria of clear, easy, and transparent, that those that had a good returns process really outweighed those that had a poor. Those that had a poor returns process saw a higher bounce rate and a much lower repeat purchase rate. And so it makes a difference.
Rob, this has been great. A lot of fun. I love talking to this, especially this time of year. There's so much data to look at. And every year there's more different kinds of ways of looking at it.
Yeah.
So I appreciate it. Where can people go? Because, it's not just me that probably wants to geek out on this stuff, but where can people go to check all this stuff out?
Absolutely. So you can go to salesforce.com. We have the Holiday Shopping Insights HQ. You can search for that as well in Google if you'd like. Again, it's built on Tableau, and we're actually one of the biggest Tableau users, because you can think about the volume of data that we're getting through. So you can check it out. It's free for everyone. We want to turn this over to the industry to help influence and make our industry rise, both online and in store. So check it out there. We'll be doing another press release around the shipping cutoff date, and then we'll do an all wrapped up. So right before NRF, we'll have our all wrapped up, which looks at the whole holiday season.
Awesome. And that gives you a lot of data, a lot of stuff to look at, because, Patriots, not so much this year, but I'm just saying.
No comments. No comments. Yeah.
Rob, thanks again. And happy watching, I guess, for the whole season, and happy holidays, and look forward to speaking with you again at some point. And give a shout out to your BFF DMC for me.
I will do that, Brent. It's been a pleasure as always. Have a happy holiday, and we'll see you around the corner.
Absolutely. And I will see you guys tomorrow for CRM Players. Paul Greenberg, me, we'll be doing Stump the Godfather. I got a good one for him. He's going to hate me, but it's going to be good for everybody else. See you tomorrow.